quite a turnaround, Carol, from what we saw yesterday when more than 400 S&P stocks helped to lift this market to another record high. All of those gains given back today.
Yeah, no records today, that's for sure. It is kind of a mixed bag, though, if you look at the S&P 500. But something I'm assuming you guys have been talking a lot about, we have too, is what, Tim, is going on in the semiconductor space.
Yeah, we're seeing the stocks down right now more than 5%. The biggest decline going back a couple of months. A big part of that has to do with what ASML said a little earlier in the session today, sort of early releasing those numbers that they were set to release tomorrow and kind of sending some chills across the industry.
Some chills, given that investors are way extended when it comes to equities, right? Global investor optimism posting its biggest increase since June of 2020, according to the latest Bank of America Global Fund Manager survey.
Yeah, and we talk about this idea of like where the allocations go next here. Is this going to be predicated on the back of the support from earnings, and the earnings that, let's face it, are still projected to be relatively good, at least on a percentage growth basis. Now, the idea is that whether that commentary going forward for the fourth quarter in 2025 disappoints. But so far, I know it's still incredibly early, but so far, so good. We get the closing bells here in New York. Let's walk you through the numbers. Pretty much a similar story to what we saw yesterday, but just kind of the flip side of that. With red across the screen, similar declines across the board, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average lower by more than 300 points, or about 0.8%. The S&P 500 also down roughly about 7 to 0.8%, while the NASDAQ Composite is going to close out the day down 1%. The NASDAQ 100 down 1.4. And we did see a little bit of strength for a good portion of the day in the mid caps and in the Russell 2000, but that faded as we got closer to the closing bells. The Russell 2000, we're just going to call it unchanged on the day. Green on the screen, if you will, Carol Massar, but only by about 1 point.
Yeah, but definitely a bit of an outperformer there compared with some of the larger cap indices. Having said that, the S&P 500, Romaine, kind of an even split, 244 names to the upside, and you've got 258 to the downside. And it's earnings season, and you've got United crossing the Bloomberg. All
right, United Airlines third quarter adjusted EPS comes in above estimates at $3.33. Estimates were for $3.07. The United third quarter available seat miles coming in just above estimates at 81.54 billion. Operating revenue coming in at $14.84 billion, above the $14.72 billion. Shares, though, right now down by about 1.3%.
And I'm also looking at the forecast for this quarter. Fourth quarter adjusted EPS will be anywhere from $2.50 to $3. The consensus estimate is smack right in the middle of $2.75. United also sees full year adjusted CapEx, its capital expenditures, below $6.5 billion. Analysts were looking for somewhere in the neighborhood of $6.33 billion. And United says that it will initiate a $1.5 billion stock buyback program. That is the first since 2020.
All right, we're also getting some results out of Interactive Brokers. Total net interest income, the main metric people pay attention to, up about 9% year over year, though that is slightly below street estimates. They were looking for about $823 million. They gave them about $802 on the nose here. Adjusted EPS also missing $1.75 versus a street estimate of $1.82, and top line revenue for the most recent quarter, we'll call it in line, $1.33 billion. Street was looking for $1.34 here. Total customer accounts right now in line with estimates at 3.12 million.
Yeah, and this stock's been on a tear this year. It's up more than 85%. It hit an all-time high in today's session. You're seeing that stock down about 4%. Digging a little bit deeper, you've got average customer credit balances up 12% year over year. Average customer margin loans, they are up about 28% year over year. So a little bit more in terms of what they're seeing on their platform.
All right, I'm watching what's going on over at United. The company did report a third quarter profit that came ahead of Wall Street's estimates, a sign that the company is bouncing back from those fare discounts that squeezed many carriers over the summer. To rehash some of these numbers, the share's down 0.8% as we speak. Adjusted profit, though, came in at $3.33 a share. United said, topping the $3.07 average analyst estimates compiled by Bloomberg. Also, as Scarlett said, that new $1.5 billion share buyback, including as much as $500 million just this year.
Kind of interesting. They're calling this their busiest third quarter, at least when you measure it by passenger volumes and the revenue associated with that. They talk a lot in this earnings release, which I think is interesting, about the so-called customer experience and some of the things that they're trying to do, I guess, to make things a little bit better, not necessarily on the plane, but actually at the airport and in their lounges themselves. Lounges, I should point out, that have a lot of work to do. Just saying.
Go on.
Romaine's a little bitter that he can't get into the lounges. We've talked about this. It's only if you have the credit card, the co-branded credit cards, because
I don't know. You need like the secret knock, the
You can
secret
be my guest,
handshake.
Romaine.
I don't know. I don't know who I got to pay.
It's gotten a little crazy about who they let in, right? Whether it's the credit card, whether it's a certain kind of flight, it gets a little nutty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or maybe they just don't want you, Romaine.
Pretty much. I think that's it.
I think they want to create different experiences for people, and everyone's trying to chase a premium passenger. I mean, Delta has really done a good job with that, and everyone else is trying to do the same. And the discount carriers are the ones kind of left battling it out. And we've seen what's happened with Frontier, with Spirit, with Southwest, for that matter.
So they opened the Reset Suite by Therabody. I got one of those little. I got one of those little Theraguns now. So maybe does that get me in? Do I just show the Theragun? This
I
is
don't even know
O'Hare.
what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, Tim, what are you talking about? I know you probably spend all day in the Therabody.
No.
Go ahead.
I don't get to spend any time at that part of the airport. That's the problem.
Oh, okay. What are you flying? Private or what? What's happening? Okay. Well, anyway, when we go back to the earnings and this idea here, in all seriousness, we talk about this sort of that uptick in passenger revenue. And we saw something similar out of the results that we got last week. We see it today in United, and we'll see if that carries over to some of the other airlines. Certainly with American, God only knows what the heck's going on with Southwest and JetBlue.
I will say that Barclays, let me get it out there, raised its price target on United Airlines just yesterday to 66 from 60. So we did see the stock close at 64 in today's session. Noting that results could beat forecasts given lower fuel prices. This is coming from the fly. So we are seeing, we'll look for some commentary on that. Another one crossing.
Okay, just looking up JB Hunt right now on the Bloomberg terminal shares in the after hours right now. Just pulling it up, excuse me, shares in the after hours right now are higher after the company reported results, up by more than 4.2%. The company reporting, just pulling it up here. Sorry, guys, it's a little slow. Third quarter revenue that came in at $3.07 billion, beating estimates of $3.01 billion. Third quarter EPS coming in at $1.49. Estimates were for $1.39. Shares higher in the after hours.
Yeah, intermodal revenue, $1.56 billion, beating the consensus estimate, and dedicated revenue, $846 million. Trailing the consensus estimate of $857 million. Keep in mind, this is a stock that's down about 11% this year.
I see you're very broken up by this,
I am.
Scarlett.
Sorry,
Absolutely. But it gets to the question, too. I always love looking at these because you kind of get a better sense.
Are you taking care of your co-host?
No. But we get a better sense of kind of this idea of kind of where economic activity is. Obviously, you get a taste of that with the trucking companies. And I thought it was interesting because we came into today and there were a couple of reports by the National Retail Federation and a couple others about some concerns that holiday spending might be a little bit lighter than what it was last year. And so you start to think about where the goods are, what we're buying. And of course, we had those results out of luxury handbag maker LVMH not doing good. Of course, that's more of a China story. But the question is, how does that feed back into the U.S. economy? Yeah,
I mean, the big question is what JB Hunt says about the current quarter and the outlook given, the upcoming seasonal shopping period and what retailers are doing in terms of their ordering. Some people say that they're done with the destocking inventories, but then we also know that a lot of them had overstocked because of anticipation that there would be a port strike. We did get that for 3 days, and if it had continued, it would have been a benefit to JB Hunt, but it so far has been resolved, or at least they're no longer striking. And it may be resolved soon.
Hey, just go back to United, United, which is up in the aftermarket, up about 1.6%. I'm looking at Delta, it's up about 0.6%. Americans up about 0.7%. JetBlue, meantime, just up about a fraction, about 0.1%. But again, we continue to see United gaining some ground here.
What's your favorite airline, Carol Massar?
She loves them all.
I love getting on airplanes. I just think it's like the coolest. I absolutely love. I love going places. I love it. I don't know.
I can tell you which one's my favorite.
I like a clean one. That's what I like.
Yes. You're not brand specific in that way, then.
No.
Mine is the least expensive one where I'm still allowed to bring a bag.
No, can I tell you, Tim,
I don't think those exist anymore.
When we are flying somewhere, he checks to see what we're going to be flying. Like we go through this whole process.
Well, whether it's Airbus or Boeing, you mean?
Yes.
You gotta see
Oh, you're one of those guys.
You got to see what kind of seat you're going to have.
Wants to know if they're a new plane.
That's all right. I did this. In fairness, I did the same thing. I booked a flight this morning, and they gave me two options. One was like on some tiny Embraer jet, and the other was like a Boeing 7 whatever. I was like, I'm going to take the bigger plane.
I should have done that because I flew back this morning on a red eye from California. I ended up in the area right ahead of the bulkhead where I couldn't recline my seat. So on a red eye flight and not able to recline, it was horrible.
So what'd you do? You just
I
stare at the
thought
back
about
of
it
your
the
seat?
whole time how I needed to
Never
sleep.
Scarlett.
Did you like just
I'm
stare
just-
at the back of your seat like David
couldn't
Putty
pick
for the
my
whole
seat.
flight and just, oh, okay.
Finley,
I'm just
it's
impressed
like
you're
herding cats today.
Even
I'm just
here
telling
today
you.
after
I
a
know.
red eye from the West Coast.
We have no producers today.
Yes,
we
we
run
do.
the show.
All right, we're closing the mics, everybody. That's a wrap. Our cross-platform on radio, TV, YouTube, Bloomberg Originals. We will see you again, same time, same place tomorrow.